Hey y'all, it's Nikki. I have to tell you about Tecovas boots. I finally have a pair and they're handmade, high quality, stylish, and comfortable. I even got them customized with leather stamping. The folks at Tecovas will help you find just the right pair. So swing by for yours at the Tecovas flagship on South Congress or their store at the Domain. Plus, good news, they just opened a new store in Georgetown at 709 Main Street for those of y'all that live a little further north. So come shop with me at Tecovas. That's TECOVAS.com. Don't go gently, y'all.
Austin's on a mission to get to zero waste by the year 2040. But unfortunately, even with recycling and composting all over town, we've plateaued. So today on CityCast Austin, our host, Nikki Devon, talked with Austin Resource Recovery about how we can all do better. It's Tuesday, April 22nd. Happy Earth Day, y'all. I'm Eva Ruth Moravec, in for Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about.
Hello, I am here today with Paul Bestien, spokesman for Austin Resource Recovery. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Nikki. How are you?
I'm good. So Austin has its goal of reducing the amount of trash it sends to landfills by 90% by the year 2040. Last time we spoke to you in the fall, you said we were about 40%, which is kind of awesome. Where are we now? How much should we be expecting that number to change over this year?
Yeah, so our diversion rate for the last fiscal year stayed about the same. In fact, the diversion rate was about 37%. So it actually went down a little bit, but it's been hovering in that 36 to 40% for many, many years. And our diversion rate that we calculate is based off of the items that we are collecting in our services. So trash, recycling, composting, bulk, brush, those services. So that number doesn't include the reuse and reduction of materials that we encourage above all other diversion methods. So for example, it doesn't include all of the items that you're donating or that you are reusing. And so we're trying to look at that with a grain of salt and look at other data to see how we can more effectively and more accurately capture the zero waste efforts that everyone in the community is doing. We've kind of hit this plateau, which is the same issue that communities across the country are facing, is how do we take the next step? And some of that is probably just the data that we're collecting and how we're reporting it. And then some of that is just continuing to find ways to encourage the community to, compost more, recycle more, donate items they no longer need, and reuse what they can.
So that segues into my next question. Let's talk about the community getting in, just doing a little bit more. Are there any easy wins, and I'm putting this in heavy quotation marks, when it comes to helping that number go up?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that, but some residents that live in Austin that maybe just moved here, they may never have had recycling or composting service before. And so while for some of us, it's a way of life, it's what we've had for many, many years, it's new for a lot of our Austinites. And so it's important to learn what you can compost. It's important to learn what you can recycle. To take it a step further, you can just look into your own life and what materials do you generate yourself or your family. If you drink a lot of soda, those soda cans can be recycled, so making sure that you are recycling them. If you love to cook at home and you have a lot of, leftovers, or you have, just potato peels or banana peels that you have left over, you can compost that. And so just making sure that you understand what you're generating and then how you can properly dispose of it. Another thing that all of us can do is just look at what we're purchasing. We live in a society where we are encouraged to buy more and to always want the latest item that's out there. And sometimes that's replacing an item that we already have, whether that's a television, a computer, a piece of clothing. And so really asking yourself, do I need this? Do I really want this? And if you do, that's fine. But then make sure if you already have a TV that's in proper working order, that you donate that to somebody else, or make sure that you recycle that properly so that it can be turned into some other materials and stay out of the landfill. And then I think the easiest thing that all of us can do is just prevent food waste. So much food is wasted in Austin and across the country. So just making sure every day that we're mindful of the amount of food that we're wasting, because if that food is not composted properly, it's going to go to the landfill. And, that's a big problem.
Yeah. Let's talk about composting, because I will say, after I talked to you last time, I was like, okay, I got to figure out this composting thing. My partner is an avid composter. She has a whole system where she freezes stuff in her freezer. It's very confusing, and I try not to get involved. So I bought this thing that I can keep in my fridge, and it's got a little top, and I can just dump my stuff in there. It's just like a whole little thing. And it feels easy. After the first couple of weeks, it was like, oh, this is just where I'm putting my scraps and where I'm putting, I have a little list of things that go in there. So and a lot of people say it's one of the big ways we can reduce waste, divert trash into other programs like composting. So since October, every Austinite is supposed to have access to composting. Do we know how many people are taking advantage of the program? And where are you seeing more participation? Are you seeing it in single family homes? Or I live in an apartment building, and I think a couple of my neighbors are kind of trying to figure it out too.
Yeah, well, as of October 1st, 2024, all multifamily properties were required to provide commercial composting collection service to their residents. And properties should be working on adding this service in 2025. We're giving properties time to be able to implement the service and to educate their staff and their residents. And so properties right now are adding the service, and we know there have been, several hundred that are adding it. There are more that are planning to add it as we go throughout the year. If you don't have compost access at your property, I encourage you to contact your property manager and ask them, when are you planning to add the service? Every one of our customers should have access to compost collection service in the city of Austin. And we collect about 45,000 tons of composting every single year. Now, a lot of that material, it's a lot. Now, a lot of that material is yard trimmings, branches, leaves, but there's a lot of it that's food as well. And we are encouraging our customers to compost more food. And that can be a challenge. And you kind of talked about it. You talked about having a kitchen compost collector in your kitchen where you can just gather your food scraps or leftovers. And you can keep that in a convenient place, fill that up, and then if you're one of our customers, you can take that to your green cart and set that out weekly. Or if you live in a multifamily property, every property might have a different system on whether they're having valet service collected or whether you have to walk it to your composting collection cart. There's a lot of ways that you can minimize smells and make it a little bit easier. I don't know if you use compostable bags to collect your material.
Yes, because you're speaking my language. That was my main hesitant. It's can I handle any smelliness or messiness or bugs? So yes, I went and got compostable bags, and it sits in a little thing, and it's in my fridge, so there are no bugs and there's no smelling.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a great job, and not a lot of people have that luxury of keeping it in their fridge. So that is a huge bonus, because we encourage people to use BPI certified compostable bags, or you can use a paper bag. You talked earlier about freezing your food scraps, and that is an easy way if you have the space. And sometimes if you live in an apartment, you don't have that luxury, but you can freeze your food scraps until collection day. If you are one of our customers, you can layer your cart with yard trimmings, like leaves. You can also layer your kitchen compost collector or cart with items like paper towels or newspaper. If you have a cart, you can use a pizza box. So anything that's going to really, soak up any of that moisture from the food scraps. And then, you can sprinkle your kitchen compost collector or cart with baking soda as well, which can also minimize smells. I think one of the important things that you do is if you do decide to use BPI certified compostable bags, which we definitely encourage, maybe every day or every couple of days, depending on the type of food waste that you're generating, making sure that you're collecting that, tying that up. If you can keep it in the fridge or the freezer, that's great, but get it out of your apartment, because obviously those smells are going to expand the longer that the material is just sitting in your kitchen. And then I think it's important to also just make sure that you're keeping your cart or kitchen compost collector clean. And then at the end of the day, try to minimize your food waste as much as possible. That's what I always encourage. Yeah, that's always the goal. Minimize what you generate, minimize your waste, and then compost and recycle the rest.
Hey, Austin. Now, y'all know the plays at the Zach Theater never disappoint. And there is a new one that people can't stop talking about. And honestly, it couldn't have come at a better time. History Meets Humanity in the Tony-nominated play called What the Constitution Means to Me. And since its premiere in 2019, this Pulitzer Prize finalist has captivated the theatrical world and taken Broadway by storm. This play reimagines the Constitution's impact on future generations of Americans. It is relevant, it's hopeful, and it is so funny. Experience the cultural phenomenon that's redefining American theater. What the Constitution Means to Me is on stage right now through May 11th. So get your tickets at zachtheater.org. That's ZACH theater.org.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Getting in better shape, eating healthier, saving more money, traveling somewhere new? What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in new languages, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. The Spanish I learned on Babbel really helped me on a recent trip to Mexico City, ordering in restaurants, shopping at the textile market, cheering on at the Lucha Libre, and I've been keeping it up since I got home. You're a podcast listener. I know that because you're listening here. I bet you'll love Babbel's new podcasts. On Eavesdrop in Espanol, which I listen to, you get to listen to a real conversation, then have the teacher host explain back to you. Then you listen again and catch everything. And you can even read along in the transcript. It's a really fun and effective way to learn. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So let's talk about recycling. Do we have like a number or percentage of how much stuff should be recycled that is instead being thrown away?
So many years ago, when we set the zero waste goal, we did a study that identified that roughly about 45% of the material that people generated could be composted, 45% could be recycled, and about 10% was actually landfill trash. And that's where we got the 90% from, right? Is we identified that most of the material that people were throwing in their trash cart could actually be reused in some format. We also find that about 20% of the items that people do place in their blue recycling cart or in the recycling is actually can't be recycled at our local facilities, and that's also a big problem as well. So I think it's important to identify make sure you recycle as much as you can. Identify what you can recycle by looking at what you generate, and then from there making sure that your family, anyone who comes over to your house, you can have someone standing next to the recycle bin and guarding it, making sure that people are not contaminating your recycling stream.
Yes.
The next time you have a party, give that to your kid or your niece or nephew, they love to be in control and tell adults what to do. So you can let them know, set them up and be that guardian of the recycling cart. One thing that we're working towards is really trying to tell the story of what happens to your recyclables once you recycle them, once we pick them up and take them to a facility. We're very fortunate in Central Texas that we have a really robust recycling ecosystem here. At the end of the day, what is recyclable is based off of the end market. So are there manufacturers who want to purchase these recyclable materials and turn them into something else? That's the key, right? You can recycle all day, but if nobody wants to buy that material and turn it back into another water bottle or turn it back into something else, it's not going to be profitable to recycle. So, I think it's also kind of fun to identify what happens to these materials. So all those plastic water bottles that you are recycling, those are going to get turned into other beverage bottles, or they could be used to make polyester for clothing, carpets, and backpacks. Yogurt containers, which are not recyclable everywhere in the country. We are fortunate that they are recyclable here. They're recycled into bicycle racks or plant pots. If anybody tries to recycle an old pair of sunglasses, I know a lot of us like to hold on to those as long as possible, but if you do need to recycle an old pair of sunglasses, those are recycled into plastic lumber and auto parts.
Let's talk about the other 10%. Between recycling and composting, they should be able to, according to the numbers, reduce 90% of the stuff that is sent to the landfills. What is the stuff that remains, where there's no other option but to go into the waste pile?
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of materials, diapers, for example. Some people want to try to, compost diapers, but if they're made out of a material that can't be composted or recycled, those need to stay in your trash bin. Kitty litter, that cannot be put into your recycling bin or your compost bin. Packing peanuts that are like styrofoam. Water hoses can't be recycled. Obviously, if they're in good shape, we want you to donate them and reuse them and give them to someone else. But if you have a water hose that's cracked, cut, that can't be, that just is leaking water, can't be reused, items that are too small to be recycled. So if it is less than the size of a credit card or the palm of your hand, that material would need to go into your trash cart.
Yeah.
A lot of people will try to recycle needles or syringes, broken glass, items like, paper towels with a lot of chemicals on them.
I think for me, it really shines a light on how much really is recyclable. That it's these very specific things that can't be. That means that it opens up for so many other things to be, recycled and I'm still learning, but I love that it's just these small amounts of things that we can't actually recycle. Hey y'all, it's Nikki. If your mom is like my mom, the one thing she really wants from you this Mother's Day is to see you. This year, you can help her do that all the time by giving her an Aura digital picture frame, which Wirecutter says is the best digital photo frame. My mom, Daisy, loves to be surrounded by pictures of her kids, her grandkids, and the memories we've made together over the years. But y'all, she has no more room on her walls. So this year, I'm giving her an Aura frame, which can hold a crazy amount of photos, and it'll keep her in the loop. We just had a family vacation in Denver, and so instead of wrangling a photo album out of our phones, my sister and I can just upload them directly to the frame. Plus, my sister is always digitizing old photos, and we can send her those too, so none of them will get lost. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's Aura, A-U-R-A, frames.com. Promo code is CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, CityCast. According to me and my calculator, you will spend more time this week between the sheets than you will at work. So upgrade your sheets to Cozy Earth. Luxury starts where you rest. I start my evening in buttery soft Cozy Earth bamboo pajamas. Then I dip into a Cozy Earth bamboo sheet set. They are silky and temperature regulating. Forget the 9 to 5. Prioritize your 5 to 9. Cozy Earth products will transform those hours into a sanctuary, and they take comfort seriously with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. Luxury should not be out of reach, so Cozy Earth is giving CityCast listeners 40% off their best-selling sheets, towels, pajamas, and more. Visit CozyEarth.com and use the code CozyAustin for 40% off. Because you deserve a great night's sleep, and sanctuary awaits at Cozy Earth.
What are Austinites getting wrong or doing wrong when it comes to composting and recycling? And I just mean, like, is there one thing that we're much better at than the other? Or because the last time we talked, we were trying to recycle the wrong things. That was our challenge. How are we faring now?
So the same problems are still happening now. I always try to be positive and say that, people are doing the best that they can with the resources that they have available to them. Actually, Austinites do a really good job with composting. Our contamination rate, which contamination is items that are in a cart that shouldn't be. So, food in a recycling cart that food would be a contamination, but the food in the green cart is fine. Whereas glass or plastic in the green cart, which is for composting, that would be contamination. Our customers do a great job with composting. We have a very low contamination rate. So most of the items that we're seeing in the green cart are actually compostable, and that's great. For recycling, we're still seeing our contamination rate at about 20%. A fifth of all the material that's in the blue cart shouldn't be in that blue cart. Now, almost all of that material can be recycled. It's just they need to be recycled in another way. Those are called hard to recycle items like batteries, plastic bags, electronics, styrofoam, food. A lot of times people want to throw that plastic container and there's still some food in it. Well, that food can't be recycled. The plastic container, it can, but it just needs to be emptied out. But we're really focused right now on reminding all of Austin and anyone who is listening to make sure that you don't put batteries in your carts, in your dumpsters, because batteries can cause fires in the dumpsters, or, that's why they're called dumpster fires, right? We always make that joke about, life's a dumpster fire because it's based off of a real thing. Batteries, harsh chemicals, aerosol cans, hairspray, chemicals, those can explode. Those can cause fires if they get, with this Texas heat. And so making sure that we're keeping those out of our carts and waste streams. And batteries there's lots of options for batteries. You can take them to public libraries. You can take any of these hard to recycle items to our Recycle and Reuse Drop-Off Center, which is located in South Austin. You do need an appointment, but it is open to all Austin and Travis County residents at no additional cost. It's paid for through the Clean Community Fee, which every resident of Austin pays for in their monthly utility bill. You can also take electronics as well. Styrofoam is a big issue. And styrofoam is a bigger issue because, it's usually big, right? If you get a huge item like a TV, and it comes packed in this box full of styrofoam, what do you do with that styrofoam? First off, most of the time, it's not going to fit in your carts anyways, but you're going to want to bring that to the Recycle and Reuse Drop-Off Center. And one cool thing about our center is we have a machine that shreds and melts that styrofoam into like a liquid or a goo, which is then molded into blocks. And then those blocks are sold and converted into new products. Some of those products could be picture frames or crown molding. And so we do that. We shred and melt the styrofoam right at the center. So if you're bringing styrofoam to the Recycle and Reuse Drop-Off Center and you want to stick around for a few minutes, you can even watch them put it through the machine and shred it up. And I also wanted to point out that starting in January, our curbside customers, have access to on-demand household hazardous waste collection. This is a new collection where you can schedule an appointment for us to come to your house to pick up batteries, chemicals, cleaning products, pool chemicals. We'll pick up light bulbs, And so that's only available to single-family homes up to 4 plexes that Austin Resource Recovery and the City of Austin services. So we provided this new service, which is a couple of months old, that, if you're doing spring cleaning or you're doing cleaning any time of the year, you can use that service. The same with electronics. Electronics, you can bring them to Recycle and Reuse Drop-Off Center, but you can also schedule an appointment if you're our customer to have electronics collected through our bulk program. And we'll come right to your house and pick up bulk items. And if we pick up items like electronics or appliances, those are going to be taken apart, and those materials, those metals and those different components are going to be recycled. And so that's just kind of a convenient way for us to help our community be able to recycle these materials in a more convenient way.
So now we have covered a lot of ways to make sure that we are reaching our goal for 2040 of 90%. Are there other ways that we haven't talked about that we can bump that 40% or 37% where we are now up to our 90% goal that we have not talked about yet?
Yeah, I think just looking into our own lives and how we live and what more can we do as individuals or in our households to reduce the amount of waste that we're generating. That might be buying less or being more mindful when we're at the grocery store. Maybe that's making sure that if there's items that we no longer want or have a use for, that we find out if they can be donated, maybe resell them. We could fix items before we just throw them in the landfill. We can also look at renting instead of buying. So maybe you just need something one time, maybe a tool or something else. You can always just rent those items too. I know the Austin Library has a renting program for a lot of items as well, so you can look into that. We have the Austin Reuse Directory, which is austinreusedirectory.com. We got very creative with that website, but you can go to that website and find where to donate, sell, rent, and fix items. And so that directory has local businesses that you can connect with that will help guide you into how you can keep some of those materials out of our landfill. And then I think it's also really important to recycle and compost when we're not at home as well. So if you're out in a park, try to find that recycling container. Don't just throw it in the trash, or take it home with you if you can. And then for businesses, if your employer is not offering composting service in your office, or maybe doesn't collect batteries, or maybe you can encourage that your employer to set up a battery recycling station where you and your coworkers can bring batteries in from home and collect them, and then they can dispose of them. Or perhaps you guys can do a clothing swap at work where everyone just brings in clothes they no longer want or need, and then you just set them up and let everyone go and find something new to wear, and then whatever's left over can be donated to a local nonprofit or some other organization that might need used clothing. Those are just some small ways that we can keep material out of the landfill and take small steps to help us to increase our diversion rate and get closer to zero waste.
So it sounds like we're on track, little by little.
Little by little, but also keep in mind, if you have friends or family that are moving here, maybe they don't know how to recycle. Maybe they don't know how to compost. So help them out, share your knowledge. We have a program, our Zero Waste Block Leader program, where people who are members of the community who want to get involved, who want to educate their family, friends, and neighbors can join our Block Leader program. And they come and do an orientation. We provide them information about all of the services we provide, and then they can go and share that information. They can come join us at events. You can tour some local facilities and see how the recycling and composting process works in person. And so if you're interested in that, that's a great way to get involved, learn more, and be able to do your part to help Austin get to zero waste.
Paul, thank you so much for being here. This is great. Thanks for bringing us up to speed on what's been happening. We're getting there. We're not there, but we're getting there. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome, Nikki. Thank you so much for having me and for everything that you do for zero waste. And, together, if we can just continue to move forward, maybe someday I won't have to come on and talk to you, and then I'll be sad about that. I'll miss it. We'll find something else to talk about.
We'll find something else.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Austin Resource Recovery's programs in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. Nikki will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.